Hi, my name is Steven and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about life lessons learned, part 6, lifelong learning, education after school. So these episodes are the lessons that I've learned along the journey of life. And this series will cover different aspects of my life now that I've grown older and wiser and now can look back with experience. This video can be used as a guide for others so that they can skip over my past mistakes. For most of us, after we leave that formal education setting like high school or college, we generally stop learning about different things. You may take a fun class here and there or get a certification for your job, but by and large, your education stops. This is definitely what I thought when I got into the working world and didn't want to continue my education further. Work and personal life started to overtake my time after graduation, and so I focused my attention on those two things. And I didn't really consider going back to school for any kind of formal education until I started to get into my 30s. But as I started nearing my 30s, I realized that there's no way you can ever not learn about new and different subjects. Different subject matters enter and exit throughout your life, and some of them might be worth pursuing, but not in a formal manner. For example, reflecting upon my engineering degree, it really didn't provide me the necessary skills for day-to-day life. I had little knowledge of other things that were equally important in my life, such as real estate or finance. And this was on top of various creative fields that I didn't get a chance to do while I was in college. This revelation was ultimately the reason why I committed to a lifelong journey of learning. In which case, I'm devoting myself to learning as many things as possible throughout my entire life, where I'm constantly learning about different subjects without learning them in a formal education setting. So for those of you who are interested in becoming lifelong learners, here are some of the pitfalls that you should avoid. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about the background, my lessons learned, and my general thoughts on this. And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, hit that notification bell if you like this content. And let's go. So the background of this started in my early 20s when I was thinking about how to be financially free. I knew that engineering was a lucrative field, but it wouldn't get me past to the finish line of financial freedom. I had to do more. And I was assessing what was a realistic timeline for me to achieve that. There were several paths to achieving financial freedom, but none of them were in my field of expertise. Income from investments and real estate were at the top of how people were financially free. And there was only one problem. My education in engineering didn't prepare me enough for those two skill sets. So I started to read a lot of books, articles, and watch YouTube videos on those subjects. The more I got in depth into these subjects, the more I realized that a formal education doesn't give you all the answers right away. It takes a long time. Now this is supposed to be obvious, but the differences are really stark. Now I'm boiling it down to simple things, but in reality, there's a lot of things that you can do in a limited educational setting without taking a 4-year degree to get that information. Not only were the instructions more clear in these articles or YouTube videos, but it also helped me to give a clear understanding of what exactly I needed to do and how it would make you successful. This is not something that a formal education is really strong at. It only gives you the bare bones concept of what you need, not how exactly to do so. And a formal education also gives you a lot of fluff that might not be necessary for you to do whatever you need to do in life. Only a very small subset of information that you learn in college that you'll actually need to apply to your real world circumstances. So where this ended up taking me is that I learned just enough to get my investments and Airbnb rentals off the ground. And from this, I started to learn about other subjects as well that I wasn't familiar with. And I wanted to duplicate that success across different areas of expertise. The point is, if I waited to get a formal education in investing and short-term rentals, I would still be at school right now. And it would be hopelessly time-consuming and expensive for me in the process. But many people still think this way, that a formal education is the key to success always. They need that degree in hand to bolster their confidence and for someone to tell them that now you're ready to enter the working world. But this is not necessarily the case. Now for some jobs, you do need the degree and certifications to do so, but for the vast majority of jobs, you don't need someone else's permission to make money from it. And so based on my successes, I've crafted my own journey of lifelong learning. When I start something new, I ask a lot of questions. I find the answer on the internet, and then I keep progressing towards it. And then I hit a wall, and then I ask more questions, and I find more answers on the internet. And I repeat this process until I know enough about the subject to make money or do whatever I need to do to hit my goals. With this process, I'm able to learn anything that I want to learn in my life without anybody hindering me. Although there are a couple of tips that you want to consider before you start a journey of lifelong learning. So here are my lessons learned on lifelong learning. Number 1, know your time commitment. With everything that you do, you need to know a realistic time commitment to dedicate to lifelong learning. Knowing how much time you could dedicate to a new skill is half the battle of learning that new skill. This was a big lesson for me to learn when I was younger. I wildly overestimated how much time that I would have available to me. And I would always take on more work and more hobbies, and I didn't end up doing any of it. I had to drop most of the things. What ultimately helped me with my time management was to focus on things that I was really passionate about, that I was motivated to do to completion. And I would realize that I would slowly gravitate towards spending more time into things that I was passionate about versus things that I wasn't passionate about. So it became like this filter that if I wasn't passionate about something, I would drop it. Things that I dropped were usually things that my friends were interested in, but not me, or things that would make me a quick buck, supposedly. So going forward, I would recommend you keep an hour or two each and every day dedicated to learning new things, new skills. And even if it's a hobby that you're spending time in, you can go into more detail and depth about the background of that particular hobby or whatever subject it might encompass. So understanding your own time commitment to lifelong learning is one of the keys for you to be successful in lifelong learning. Number 2, keeping curiosity alive. Something funny happens when we get older. We tend to start to retreat to things that we know how to do really well. And we start to do a lot less things that are new or unfamiliar with. But we have to keep the curiosity alive of those things that we're not good at or the things that are new in our lives. And that curiosity can come in the form of questions about that particular subject. And some of the answers that we get might be interesting enough for us to actually pursue that thing. Curiosity makes the mind active and not passive. And we are working our mind like a muscle every time we're curious about something. It forces us to question our world and opens us to the possibility of new ideas and opportunities. And it also brings excitement into our lives once our lives becomes routine and dull. This has been one of the main reasons why I've committed to lifelong learning, to create excitement and curiosity within my life. I'm always able to find something interesting in any subject I come across. And I ask a lot of questions relentlessly until I understand the basic concept or premise of it. So some tips on developing your curiosity or keeping it alive is to ask a lot of questions. Never be satisfied with that answer. And also keep away from gut reactions to things that you don't know too much about. Save it for when you know the answer for sure. And also don't take things around you for granted. Ask questions relentlessly until you understand the basic concept of those things. And if you want to dig deeper, check my previous video on the 5 whys to get to the root of the problem. That video outlines the process of asking whys until you find the root of your problem or issue. So one of the keys to lifelong learning is to remain curious throughout your life. It'll help you to keep an open mind and help you to discover new and exciting things that you never thought of before. Number 3, information is everywhere. You can get literally any information you want from the internet at your fingertips. Anything you want to learn about can be accessed on the internet. I know this is obvious, but well understated, because some people still think that you cannot learn something to completion without a formal education process. That you need to read a school book and get a formal certification from an institution before you know that subject. I believe that in the 21st century, this way of thinking is really obsolete for the tools that we have. When I was in school 20 years ago, we barely had access to Cliff Notes. I had to actually buy Cliff Notes if I wanted to summarize a book. Now it takes me 3 clicks and I know the entire summary of that particular book. And when I was younger in elementary school, the only access I had to the world information was at a library. And now in present day times, all of that information can be accessed from my phone, anytime I want. Lifelong learning has been made incredibly easy to do within the past couple of years. All you need to do now is pick a subject that you're interested in and go online and find the answer to that. And you can also pare down the things that you're not interested in and the things that you are interested in through summary videos. And that significantly cuts down the amount of time iterating on what is your passion in life. And things that I couldn't learn before without a lot of time or money can be learned instantly or near instantly now. And before that information was trapped in libraries and different authors. Now you have access to every library, every book, and every author on those subjects. So lean into the information age and use those tools to get whatever information you need about a certain subject. And it certainly helped me to cultivate and master different subjects in my life without a formal education. Number 4, always be learning. This is my play on the acronym of ABC, or always be closing. But this is one of my lessons to lifelong learning, is to always be learning whenever you can. What this means is actively engaging in everything that you're doing so that you're learning more about the subject as you grow older. This can encompass a lot of different things. For example, cooking, getting a work certification, or getting better at a certain hobby. And the goal is to always learn and perfect something that you're working on, so you're always in the process and mindset of learning something. The reason that this is important because it reinforces the lifelong learning habit that you're always learning about something all the time. You're not taking a break on something. Because if you stop learning or pause on something, it can be really hard to get back into the flow of things. So as a lifelong learner, I experienced this pause during the first year of the pandemic. After many years of learning new things and getting better at existing things, I basically took a break during the pandemic, and it was really hard for me to get back into the state of learning. I went into maintenance mode during this time where I just kept my skills barely adequate. I was playing video games for the majority of that time. It was very hard for me to focus on things that weren't video games at the time, so all of my skill sets started to degrade. And I really didn't have any particular focus or development goals to get me out of that mindset. What ultimately helped me back on the process of lifelong learning was cooking. I was tired of the same processed food that I was making for myself during that first year of the pandemic. I wanted new foods. I branched out and I got better cooking equipment, and I also increased the complexity of the dishes that I was making. So for me, now cooking is a lifelong skill that I want to grow and cultivate. So my tips are to always have something that you're learning in the process of your life. So keeping the curiosity alive and asking different questions like, why is it this way? Why is it that way? To keep your inquisitive minds active. Start with something simple and move to more complex things as you gain confidence in that. So always be learning because it helps prime your mind to be active and also looks out for new opportunities that you might be interested as well. Number 5, quitting is okay. When you're committed to the process of lifelong learning, there are some things that you gradually lose interest in, and that's okay if you end up quitting it. This isn't like you're going to school and you have to commit 4 years to that certain subject. You can quit whenever you want. You can either do this when you lose interest in the subject or you think you know enough about it to get by. And you can quit and move on to something that you're just more passionate about. In the old mindset, there's always a need to get some sort of certification or some kind of acknowledgement that you completed the course. But in life, there is no such thing. I was certainly in that mindset of I had to complete something to completion. Whether it's a book or a class, I needed to finish it. But now, many years down the line, I realized that I wasted so much time in completing something that ultimately did nothing for my overall life. I was, in effect, just checking a box to complete it for completion's sake. It certainly helped me a lot that I was older and more experienced so that I could pick my passions and choose to discard the things that I wasn't interested in. So as I got older, I realized that I can quit things that I wasn't 100% committed to. So what I suggest is do a deep dive in what you're truly interested in and see if whatever you're doing now aligns with that. And focus on the subject just enough to reach your goals. It can be really basic or it can be really complex depending on whatever you're trying to learn. In life, there's no formal off-ramp to quit something. You just need to do it. And just know that over your lifetime, you're going to cultivate and create new passions and interests throughout your life. And finally, you can always go back to the thing that you just quit. There's no formality to it at all. It's always up to you. So here are my general thoughts on lifelong learning. So I definitely didn't spend enough time talking about formal education, but it deserves some thought. I absolutely think that going to school and college is a great way to learn skill sets that you wouldn't otherwise learn. And it introduces you to skill sets, people, and critical thinking that you wouldn't otherwise have. But there are really clear limitations of what school can offer you once you're in the real world. I've gone through various different schools, and you pay exactly what you want to learn. Nothing more, nothing less. There are opportunities to branch out, but this is not the case for focused subjects. For example, if you focus in on engineering and you want another minor in something, you're going to have to pay for that. And there's very little cross-training opportunities once you're hyper-focused on a particular subject at school. And the higher you get in the education system, the more narrow and the worse it gets. You can be incredibly specialized into a particular subject, especially at the master's or PhD level. When you get into the real world, learning is completely different. It is not formalized in any way. No one sits you down and tells you exactly what you need to do to pass the test. There are no tests. There are no grades at all. There's not even a pass or fail. It's just shades of life. So it's really strange that schools are still on a graded system or pass and fail system. And school really trains you to learn in a specific manner. When a teacher tells you something and you write it down and learn it. This is not life. Lifelong learning is a messy process. There's no one right answer to a specific question. There are multiple different answers. School tends to teach you that one answer is king and reigns above them all. But in the new 21st century, lifelong learning is more critical and important now more than ever because of technology. Due to evolving technology, we need to increase our skill sets almost as fast as the technology advances. And that those new skill sets are critical for us to stay relevant in the greater job market. So we need to evolve as well, and lifelong learning is that evolution for us. So those were my lessons learned on lifelong learning. Most people tend to think that learning ends when you leave school or a formal class setting. But I think that a commitment to lifelong learning has an incalculable impact on your life as we age. Learning new skill sets outside of what you were formally trained in broadens your skill sets for life. But having competency in those different subjects can not only make your life interesting, but keeps you on your toes for the next new employment opportunities. So the main keys of this video are to keep curiosity alive, information is everywhere, and always be learning. So thank you for watching. Please leave me a comment down below on what kind of skills that you want to learn and why. And I'll see you next time.